Hi, this is Brendan Davis from Bedrock Games, and today I want to talk about movies and shows that influenced Wandering Heroes of Ogregate. I was originally going to do this as a single video with all of the movies next to me, and I would just go one by one and talk about them. I tried that. It did not work. It was far too long. So instead, I'm going to just do individual, smaller videos for each show and movie to just give you a basic idea of why I thought they were important and how they influenced us, and that way people can skip the ones they don't want to see, and I'll just have more time to talk for each one. We'll see how well this goes. If it goes very well, I'll do all of them. I did try to pare down my list, but I just can't do the thing where I reduce it to 3 to 7 important works that influenced me. I really need to have some room to talk about all of them. So there's probably about 20 total on the list. So it's fair. I think it's fairly lengthy as lists go. But anyways, the first one I want to talk about is a Chinese drama series, Return of Condor Heroes, starring Liu Yifei. This one was made in 2006. This is the version that I like, and it's the one that I'm recommending to you today. There's also one from the early 80s, which is also quite good. It's a little bit older, obviously, and it does show, but I think that this one is good in its own, too. I would just recommend the 2006 version for a number of reasons. Number one, it's I think it's it's good production value. It's more recent, and I just really like this one. There's also one from 2014 called Romance of Condor Heroes, and that one's pretty good too. I like that one. That one was a little more controversial with some of their casting choices and some of the changes they made to the storyline. There was one in the 90s as well as some others. The 90s version is very popular, but it's really hard to find, and good luck getting it with English subs. So usually if you speak to people from the region, the one from the 90s is the one that they'll point to as like the top one. But for me, the 2006 version is, I think, really good and just a great introduction to what wuxia looks like when you give it more space, when you give it something approaching more of a novel-like format, because the length of time, these are 40 episodes, these series, and so they just have more time to get into the source material that they took it from. Just to give you some context, the Return of Condor Heroes is the second installment in a trilogy, and it's based on the works of Louis Cha, who's a very famous wuxia novelist, and one of his most famous works is the Condor Heroes trilogy. So they have different titles depending on how they're translated and what version you happen to find, but it's Eagle Shooting Heroes, Return of Condor Heroes, and Heaven Sword Dragon Saber. And the first two are the ones that we're interested in here because those ones are the most connected. They're all great, and everybody has their favorite televised versions, but right now I just want to focus on Eagle Shooting Heroes and Return of Condor Heroes. In terms of the source material, it hasn't officially been translated into English, so you're not going to be able to go to Amazon and get Legend of Condor Heroes translated into English. You can find it in Chinese, but you will not find it in English. There are fan translations online. Some of them are quite good, but there are no official translations. I'm hoping that one of these days we'll get a real official English translation in print, and because I think this trilogy is something that I think would have a lot of appeal to people here. I really hope that one day we get that. There are other wuxia novels that have been translated into English, but this is one I think that, if we do ever hear that that's going to happen, I'll be sure to have a video blog about it. Anyways, this is the second installment. The background is that in the first installment, we follow the characters of Guo Jing and Yang Kang, and they're sworn brothers, and one of them basically takes the path of righteousness, the other one takes the path of evil. And I won't really spoil any of it for you, but the important bit is that the main character in this one, Yang Guo, is the son of Yang Kang, the evil guy. And so right off the bat, you just have a really interesting premise. And what I find particularly interesting about it is in the first installment, you're in Eagle Shooting Heroes, which is a different series, but the first series, the focus is on Guo Jing, and he's sort of just the stereotypical. Well, no, he's not stereotypical. He's the iconic chivalrous hero, but I should say he's far from stereotypical. He has a lot of very interesting traits that I don't think you normally see in a heroic type character. But he follows the rules. He is true to his word. He never he's always trying his hardest to observe all of the sort of codes of etiquette and the rules that martial heroes are expected to abide by, and so when you get to Return of Condor Heroes, it's very interesting that the character we start to follow is someone who just breaks all the rules and is supremely individualistic and unorthodox and wild and just, I don't know, I just find him one of the most compelling characters. And now I should warn you, early on he's kind of got a quasi wild child thing going on, and particularly in this version, so he's a little goofy in the first few episodes. But once you get past that and the character starts to develop, I think he's a very interesting character, and he's a hero, but he's played almost like you might expect a villain to be played in a lot of ways. So he's just, to me, if you've seen my other videos on that subject, I find him very interesting. Now, Yang Guo ends up going through a lot of different, caretakers, and he has a bit of a journey at the beginning where he spends some time with Uncle Jing, and then he ends up with these Taoist priests, where he's sort of supposed to study under them, and that does not work out, and he ends up at a place called Ancient Tomb Sect, which I've spoken about in other videos. And at Ancient Tomb Sect, he finds one of the last remaining disciples there, Zhao Long Nu, and whose name usually I think is translated into Little Dragon Girl or Dragon Maiden, something to that effect. But she becomes his Shifu. She instructs him in the martial arts of her sect, and eventually they become lovers. And in the Confucian context of this setting, that's regarded as a form of incest. So then they become reviled by the martial world, and Yang Guo is catapulted into a series of adventures. He basically becomes, literally a wandering hero. His path is constantly intersecting with Zhao Long Nu's in interesting and sometimes tragic ways. The overarching story is definitely the love story between them, but it's also about his path into becoming a martial hero and the sort of redemption of his line. But it's and that's a very simplified sort of very simple version of the story, but that's probably enough for our purposes. In terms of why it was important for Wandering Heroes of Ogre Gate, number one, I think that more than anything out there, this really influenced the setting. This is, to me, Return of Condor Heroes is a tour of what a wuxia setting really should look like. It's if you've seen a lot of martial arts and wuxia movies, you can get a real taste of what the world is like. But this really sort of plants you in the world, and you get to see all the different sects and the landscape and the characters, and the characters really pop out. This is Louis Cha is incredible at characterization, and you get some of the most interesting characters, in large numbers over the course of this series. You get some classic villains, so incredible villains. You get really colorful personalities, and even the bad guys, you get to know them in a way that it's not that they become sympathetic and you overlook their bad qualities, but he explores them in a way that makes them very understandable. So I just think it's a rich cast of characters, and it really is an example of what the martial world in a campaign world could look like. So I highly recommend it to any GM who's interested in starting a wuxia campaign, I mean, there are other series, and I'm sure everybody has their opinions on them, and you really can't go wrong with a good wuxia series. But for my money, this one is the one to watch. Some people do get annoyed at maybe the emphasis on the love story or the goofiness of the main character in the first few episodes, but I think it's great. I think it's great, and I think you can start with this one. You don't need to start with Eagle Shooting Heroes. You can begin here, and you'll pick up the information as Yangua picks up the information about the backstory, so you kind of will get everything from his point of view. Another thing that this influenced in Wandering Heroes of Ogregate is a character we have named Lady Plumblossom. She was very much inspired by one of the villains in Return of Condor Heroes. And forgive me if I mispronounce this, because I always go by my subtitles and the text on the back of the box. But her name is Li Mochu, and she's sometimes called just simply Priestess Li or something to that effect. And she's also another former member of Ancient Tomb Sect who is just, ruthless and bent on revenge in a very interesting way. And whenever she appears on screen, excitement follows. She's a real fun and interesting character, and boy, is she capable of just slaughtering people when she needs to. But again, she also has a backstory, and that's explained. And there is a reason for why she is the way she is. And I think she's played by the actress who played her. I think is Jessie Meng. I might have that name wrong, so if I do, I'll correct it at the bottom of the video. But you might have seen her. I think she was in the third Mummy movie, so you might recognize her from that. But yeah, so Lady Plumblossom definitely is a nod to Priestess Li from Return of Condor Heroes, and I think she's one of the more compelling characters in the series. There are others. I mean, there's no shortage of compelling characters, but definitely this is one of my favorite series. There are some scenes early on that are a little bit alarming, especially if you're sensitive to them. So there is like just so people know, there is a rape scene early in the series, and it's important to the story, but it's something to be aware of if you're sensitive to that. But overall, it's a really enjoyable, great series. And just as a side note, if you've I talk a lot about One-Armed Swordsman, and to me that's one of the best wuxia movies of all time. That is based on a sequence from this story. They just take a little thing that happens in the story and they turn it into a whole movie. But One-Armed Swordsman goes back to Return of Condor Heroes. So and you'll see that a lot with this. If there's a lot of movies and shows and things like that have taken elements of this storyline. So I definitely recommend Return of Condor Heroes. Again, the 2006 version is the one that I would go with. I think this is an excellent version. It's got an outstanding soundtrack too. The music to this one really fits every aspect of it. There's never a moment where you're puzzled by their selection of music, and the music is worth listening to on its own in some cases. Now they do, I believe, use music from some other soundtracks that you might have heard, but the music that they choose is very appropriate. So I like that aspect of it. In terms of where you can find this, I believe it's still available on Amazon. It might not be. I've actually purchased more than one copy of this over the years. And I've never had trouble getting it, but sometimes they're harder to get, and eventually a lot of these shows either you can't get them anymore after a while, or it's like $300 if you want to get a copy. So I don't know what the current status is with getting an actual DVD copy. And I don't believe that it's licensed on any site like Viki or anything like that. There are streaming sites that sometimes air these shows. with English subtitles, but as far as I know, this one, I don't think it's available on either Drama Fever or Viki. Netflix definitely won't have it. Netflix mainly, I think you'll just find Korean dramas. The only Chinese drama I've seen there is Empresses in the Palace. Amazon Prime, I have seen dramas there, Chinese dramas, but I don't believe I've ever seen this one on Prime. I've seen DVDs there, but never this as a streaming movie. So, hopefully it won't be hard to get. Usually when I really want to track down a movie or show, I go to Amazon or eBay, and if that fails, there's a kung fu store in Boston that sells movies that you can go to. But if you're not here, that's probably not an option for you. So, there are places online. I'll try to find, like Yes Asia, and I forget what company actually put this one out on DVD. But if it's not Yes Asia, I'll find it and I'll put a link to it. And again, hopefully it's available. But again, 40 episodes, or 41 episodes, 45 minutes each. So, if you do watch it, know that it's a long series. Some series are longer than that. So, I've seen series that go from 70 to 100 episodes. But this one is definitely worth watching. And again, if you're a GM, it's a great example of the martial world. And also, because I spoke about wuxia dungeons in my previous video, Ancient Tomb Sect is a wuxia dungeon. It's a mega dungeon. It's basically just a cavern with all kinds of hidden chambers and traps and everything. And it's you could take Ancient Tomb Sect and turn that into a dungeon, no problem. So absolutely, I highly recommend Return of Condor Heroes 2006. The early '80s version, really great as well. And there's a more recent one which I know is on Viki, and that one's worth checking out too. So I will provide some links in the bottom of the page. If you disagree with me, by all means, feel free to post your disagreement at the bottom. As I stated in my previous video, I'm not going to be debating with people in the comments. I don't want people to feel like if they voice their opinion, I'm going to come in there and hammer them or anything. So if you disagree with me, or if you think I'm inaccurate and you want to correct me, absolutely, feel free to post a comment and do so. If I was inaccurate, I do want to be accurate, so I will. If you find something that's a legitimate mistake on my part, I'll post it in the notes. So that people know about that, because I especially with things like names of the people involved in these series or characters, I want this all to be as accurate as possible. So hopefully I didn't mess anything up. But again, I just kind of ramble, and I at this point I don't even remember what I said. So all right, goodbye.